The emergency klaxon shattered the peaceful silence of the colony's twilight hour. Varen's head snapped up from her meal, her 6 eyes narrowing to pinpoints as the scent markers in her den told her what her heart already knew. Her cubs were gone. She burst through the reinforced door with enough force to bend the frame. The Zathari were apex predators on 17 worlds. Their kind feared across the spiral arm for good reason. 9 feet of corded muscle, crystalline claws that could slice through starship hull plating, and a maternal instinct that had once made her tear through an entire pirate crew that had threatened her young. Now that instinct screamed through every fiber of her being. The colony administrator, a Quellan named Thex, practically threw himself against the wall as Varen stormed past. "We're searching," he squeaked. "Every section, Varen didn't wait to hear more. Her cubs were 3 months old, barely able to retract their combat spines. The colony sat on the edge of wilderness that hosted creatures even Zathari respected. And there was one other thing. Humans had just arrived on this world. Humans, the species whose military had somehow defeated the Kresh Dominion. The species whose soldiers sang as they charged into certain death. The species that other species whispered about in trading posts and military academies, trying to understand what made them so inexplicably dangerous. Varen's tracking sense locked onto her cub's ascent trail within moments. It led away from the settlement toward the human quarters. Her blood ran cold, then hot with rage. If one of those Deathworlders had harmed her children, the human Hab unit was smaller than the others, set slightly apart as if the humans preferred solitude. Varen's claws extended fully as she approached, every predatory instinct firing. She could hear sounds from within, soft rhythmic breathing and something else. A low rumbling vibration that made her scales prickle. She forced the door open with one clawed hand. The scene inside made her freeze, her combat-ready nervous system suddenly unable to process what her eyes were showing her. Eli Grant, the human colony technician, sat propped against the wall of his living space, his head tilted back, mouth slightly open in sleep. And there, curled on his chest like they belonged there, were both of her cubs. Their tiny bodies rose and fell with his breathing, their needle-sharp teeth visible in content half-yawns. They were purring, that deep subsonic rumble that Zathari young only made when they felt completely, utterly safe. The human's hand rested gently on Kree's back, her eldest. As Varen watched, paralyzed by confusion, the cub snuggled deeper into the human's worn shirt. Eli Grant stirred, his eyes opening slowly. When he saw Varen filling his doorway, every visible tooth bared, claws extended and gleaming, he did something that defied all predatory logic. He smiled. "Hey there," he said softly, his voice barely above a whisper. "You must be Mom. Don't worry, they're okay. They wandered in about an hour ago through the vent system. Seemed scared of something, so I just sat with them." Varen's translator struggled with some of the human idioms, but the meaning was clear. This human, this creature from a world so hostile that its inhabitants had to become unkillable just to survive childhood, had simply comforted her children. "They are predators," Varen managed, her voice coming out as a growl despite her attempt at calm. "Cubs, dangerous, their spines—" "Yeah, I figured," Eli said, glancing down at the small tear in his shirt where Shen, her youngest, had apparently grabbed him. "Got me once when I tried to move. But they settled down pretty quick." He paused, then added with what Varen's translator labeled as sheepish. "I might have sung to them a little. My sister's kids always liked that." Varen stepped closer, watching as her cubs, her precious, deadly cubs, continued to sleep peacefully on this human's chest. Shen's tail was wrapped around Eli's arm. Kree had drooled slightly on his collar. "You're young," Varen said slowly, trying to understand. "You said your sister's young. You protect offspring that are not your own?" Eli's expression shifted to something Varen's translator couldn't quite name. "Well, yeah," he said. "They're kids. That's what you do." In that moment, Varen began to understand something that the military reports and intelligence briefings had never quite captured. Humans weren't dangerous because they were aggressive or violent, though they could be both. They weren't terrifying because they refused to surrender, though they did that too. Humans were dangerous because they had taken every survival instinct, every predatory drive, every aggressive impulse that their nightmare world had bred into them, and they had chosen, consciously and deliberately, to aim it all at a single purpose, protecting those who couldn't protect themselves, even children that weren't their own. Even children that could theoretically kill them. How did you know they were frightened? Varin asked, settling her haunches down, her claws slowly retracting. Eli shrugged carefully, mindful of his sleeping cargo. Body language mostly. They were all puffed up, spines out, but their eyes kept darting to the door. Classic scared trying to look tough combination. My nephew does the same thing during thunderstorms. He looked down at the cubs with something that Varin's translator finally, hesitantly labeled as fondness. They're beautiful. By the way, Eli continued, those scale patterns are incredible. Iridescent, right? Change color with their mood. Varin felt something shift in her chest, some ancient instinct recognizing what her rational mind had been slow to accept. This human wasn't a threat. He was something else entirely, something the galaxy didn't quite have words for yet. They do, she said quietly. Right now they are dreaming. Happy dreams. The scales show silver blue. Eli smiled again. That strange human expression that showed teeth but somehow communicated the opposite of aggression. Good. They had a rough evening, I think. Something must have spooked them. A rough evening. Her cubs had faced something in the darkness that had sent them fleeing in terror, and they had somehow known on some deep instinctive level to seek out the human, the apex predator of apex predators, the species that had domesticated wolves and bears and somehow turned fight or flight into fight and adopt. Eli Grant, Varin said formally, using his full name as Zathari did when acknowledging a debt. You have protected my cubs. My clan is in your debt. Eli looked uncomfortable. No debt necessary. Like I said, they're kids. Anyone would have— No, Varin interrupted gently. Not anyone. Most would have seen predators. You saw children. Kree stirred then, blinking awake with that momentary confusion of the young. The cub saw Varin and made a happy chirping sound, then seemed to realize where he was and looked up at Eli with wide eyes. Eli just smiled and carefully, so carefully, helped the cub climb down. Your mom's here, little guy. Time to go home. As Varin gathered her cubs, checking them over with gentle claws, Shen twisted around to look back at Eli. The cub's scales flickered with patterns that meant, in the wordless language of the very young, safe and pack and protect. Varin met Eli's eyes over her cubs' heads. The humans, she said. I am beginning to understand why the galaxy fears you. Eli looked puzzled. Because I babysat some kids? No, Varin said, moving toward the door with a cub under each arm. Because you are a species of warriors who chose to become a species of guardians instead. There is nothing more dangerous than that. As she walked back to her den, her cubs already chattering about the nice soft human and the song voice, Varin made a mental note to update her reports to the Zathari Council. The humans were dangerous, yes. But perhaps not in the way the galaxy needed to fear. Perhaps they were dangerous in the way that would save them all.